Hi guys, and welcome to the Stephen King Sematary Club. For July of 1958. Chapter 13 is the Apocalyptic Rockfight. So we are introduced to Oscar Bowers, who is Henry's father, and he is an awful man. He's just gross, he's horrendous. He blames everything in his life on the Hanlons, and I just have no patience for that kind of behavior. You know, you have to take some initiative, you have to put some of the blame on yourself. You can't live like that and then teach your children to live like that. It just becomes a Hatfields and McCoy's situation, and that helps no one. And it's dumb, and like I said, I have no patience for that kind of behavior. So Henry has been influenced by his father, but that doesn't excuse his behavior. And not only does he pick on Mike at every turn, but he is just the most evil child. He killed Mike's dog, Mr. Chips. He befriended him, he made him like him and trust him, and then he straight up murdered this dog. He poisoned him and tied him up so that he would suffer and not be able to get away, and Henry would be able to watch the entire process. That is just so disturbing, and I judge anyone on the way they treat animals. That is my personal benchmark. The way you interact with animals, the way you treat them, that tells me almost everything I need to know about you. So, Henry is a lost cause, in my opinion. Anyone who tortures an animal and then kills it is just, nope, I'm done with you. I hate you. We can never be friends. Bill is talking to the rest of the losers about the sewer system. He talked to his father, who kind of didn't really want to explain much about it, but he patiently told Bill about the sewer system being kind of uncharted territory. There's just a whole bunch of building that went on, and no one took the time to make good records. So if something goes wrong down there, everyone just kind of has to guess. No one knows. They have to, someone should go down there and chart the entire system, but no one's done it. So Bill is aware that the underground sewer area is just a mess, and it's going to be very dangerous to play around in there, and of course that's where they're going to have to go with their showdown with it. Stan has some firecrackers that the losers want to set off, so they're going to head to the dump and do this, and on the way they're kind of playing make-believe, and Eddie kind of feels like there are piranha in the river that he can see, but it's kind of like he manifests them. Thinking about them has kind of created them, but he's not sure. He's pretty sure that if he falls in the water, these piranha are going to eat him, but you don't want to test that. So maybe, probably. When they get to the dump, they find that the dump keeper is there, and they're not supposed to play there, so they have to move on because he's just going to run them off anyway. So they decide to go to the gravel pit, and that happens to be where Mike will end up, because he is currently walking and getting unknowingly stalked by Henry and his gang. So once Mike finds out that they're behind him, he hightails it and he's going to go to the Barrens, but he ends up kind of cutting away and going to the gravel pit. Mike ends up getting behind a chain link fence, and Henry Bowers is so unhinged and so mad that he yells, "I killed your dog." And Mike, understandably, is furious. So he hightails it out of there. He's running along, the crazy Bowers gang is behind him and they're starting to climb the chain link fence, and Mike stops and he takes his shirt off and he picks up a whole bunch of coal that's just laying scattered around. He gathers it and he takes it with him, and then he stops and waits. And he takes a stand, he starts pelting Henry with these chunks of coal, and he gets him right in the head. And he's like, "That's for my dog." So good on Mike. So there's this big coal fight between these boys, and Henry is unhinged enough to use firecrackers, throws them at Mike. And I guess I don't really know the difference between them. I never really played with them. but there are cherry bombs and M80s that they have, and I guess those are pretty intense, pretty hardcore, and can blow body parts off. On the other side of the gravel pit, the losers hear these firecrackers going off, these really loud ones, like, you know, not tiny, tiny little snake firecrackers. So they're kind of aware that something is happening, and they start gathering rocks to use as ammo. They don't know why, but they have this sense that they're going to need them. Ben tries to get rid of Beverly, but she's not having it. And that is kind of a running theme through this, where the boys want to protect Beverly. They want her out of danger. They don't want her to participate. And she's like, nope, I am right there by you. Mike falls into the gravel pit and gets back up to keep running, and he sees this line of kids stretched out in front of him, and he said it looks like they were expecting him. So he kind of gets behind them, gathers his own ammo, and a big fight ensues between the two different groups. The two factions just have it out, and it's brutal, and it's crazy. And no one loses an eye, but some damage is done. And Mike is the final piece, snapped into place. They are now a whole unit. Now, whatever has drawn them together is satisfied that they have all of the pieces. And he just fits right in, and he tells them the story of the bird, and they start breaking ground on this underground clubhouse that they decided to make. Mike says that his dad has a photo album that he's going to bring to show them, and in this photo album there are just all these pictures where Pennywise is captured. And these are from like the 1700s, the 1800s. There's a World War II parade after World War II is over, and Pennywise is in all these photos. And in this one in particular, he runs at the plastic sheet that's covering the photos and starts pressing against it. And Stan completely freaks out over this, but it's such a creepy thing. Ben tells the group about a smoke hole ceremony that he just read about, and they are supposed to sit in their underground clubhouse, light some wood on fire that's going to get very smoky, and they're supposed to sit there and inhale the smoke until some of them have visions. And it seems like a bad idea, but they're like, nope, we're going to do it. And they end up telling Beverly that she has to stay outside in case any of them faints or something bad happens, and she can help get them out. And she's like, no, I'm not doing that. And she threatens to leave the group over this. She's like, I'm going to leave because, you shouldn't treat me this way. Just because I'm a girl, I want to participate. And so they say, well, okay, if you don't, then we need at least one person to be on the outside in case something goes wrong. And so she strikes a match, burns the head, and then puts 6 other matches in her hand, and then whoever gets the burned one is supposed to stay on the outside. And as everyone picks their match, they all say, I love you, to her, and that kind of solidifies and makes everything right again between them. And no one ends up with a burned match head. So she opens her hand, she has a burn mark on her hand from where it had been, and all of them are unburned. So obviously they're meant to all do this together. They all go into the clubhouse and they sit there in the smoke, inhaling the smoke, and one by one they start, leaving because it gets to be too much. And it's down to Mike and Richie. And the two of them are in this 5x5 clubhouse. And all of a sudden it just expands, it gets huge, and then they're outside in this jungly, old, long ago barrens. It's like a tropical place with what could be dinosaurs, and the entire landscape is different, but they know it's the barrens. Quote, they weren't inside anymore. The two of them were standing together in the middle of the barrens, and it was nearly dusk, page 720. And they are what Mike calls the ago. So it's possibly millions of years ago. There are weird animals, weird plants, very tall, tropical, humid, wet, just crazy, different, kind of like prehistoric times. And all these animals start running away, and Mike and Richie are scared. They look up into the sky and they see the coming of it, the origin story of it. It comes, crash lands in downtown Derry, or what would be downtown Derry. And they realize that it has been here since the dawn of time, basically. And before man, before anything, it's such an ancient evil. And they are pulled out by Bill and Ben, who initially can't find them in the smoke, in this tiny 5x5 clubhouse. They cannot locate them, which is a cool, crazy thing. It's like they weren't there. It's like they actually were transported. So I love the science fiction-y aspect of that, even though I don't really like science fiction very much. And it just, the way that King describes the ago is just, I don't know, there's something so primal about it and so scary. Quote, was this supposed to happen? From the time Ben got the idea for an underground clubhouse instead of a treehouse, was this supposed to happen? How much of this are we thinking up ourselves, and how much is being thought up for us? Page 709. Richie feels like this is a counterforce to it, so a good force, as opposed to, the bad force of it. So kind of like a Jedi Sith type situation here. But at the same time, he doesn't like the idea that something is pushing them, controlling them, making up the way that they're supposed to go. I do like that aspect of fate being introduced. This whole thing is a fated situation. And I forgot to mention too that when the adults are back in the library, Mike opens the refrigerator and a whole bunch of balloons come out, and behind the balloons is Stan's head. And in the miniseries, it's adult Stan, but this is kid Stan, 11-year-old Stan, and he has a whole bunch of feathers in his mouth from, the bird that Mike saw as a kid. And it's such a gruesome part of the book, and it gruesome and bloody and disturbing, and just, I don't know, one of them brings up a good point that they don't know how interactive Pennywise is with them, because it's kind of like TV, kind of like you watch a newscast and you can see the person on TV but they can't see you, even though it's I don't know. There's just a whole question of how much it is able to control and how much he knows and can hear what they're saying. Have a spooky day.
I never really cared about the coming of it before, but now I really felt a sense of dread reading that part of the book. I don't usually like science fiction, Land of the Lost type stuff, but something about this time just really got under my skin and made me feel uncomfortable, but I liked it, if that makes sense.